A COVID explosion. Tonight case numbers soar and the Premier warns the worst is yet to come.
I'll be shocked if it's less than 100 this time.
The outbreak turns deadly, a 90-year-old succumbing to the disease, and a long lockdown now almost a certainty. A packed poker night and an 18th birthday party. Astonishing breaches of lockdown laws as the virus takes hold in our suburbs. Plus, packing up and shipping out, the entire NRL competition poised to move to Queensland. And finally, some great news for the nation. A childhood dream realised and history made as Ash Barty triumphs at Wimbledon.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. From bad to worse, that's the outlook for our COVID crisis, with the first death recorded in Sydney's current outbreak, a 90-year-old woman from our southwest. And with 77 new cases today, Premier Gladys Berejiklian is warning us to prepare for even higher numbers tomorrow. Eddie Meyer begins our coverage.
Now a well-worn path for our Premier, but one that is growing more burdensome by the day. Our worst case tally of this latest COVID wave, but even harder days are almost certainly ahead.
I'm anticipating the numbers in New South Wales will be greater than 100 tomorrow, and I'll be shocked if it's less than 100 this time tomorrow.
Of the 77 new cases to 8 last night, 55 are linked to known cases or clusters. But again, the majority of those, 39, are household contacts. Of concern, 22 cases remain under investigation. Of more concern, 33 were in the community while infectious. Sadly, a 90-year-old woman from southwest Sydney has died in Liverpool Hospital, the first this year, and 57th New South Wales death from COVID-19. She was unvaccinated and contracted the virus from someone close to her who was infected in the community.
Again, it highlights the severity and the impact that COVID can have on loved ones, the most nearest and dearest to you.
And all of this can mean only one thing: Sydney, brace for even longer in lockdown.
Given the lockdown was supposed to be lifted on Friday, I think everybody can tell that it's highly unlikely at this stage, given where the numbers are.
Lockdown is giving contact tracers a chance to catch those transmitting in the community, but it's an ever more difficult task just keeping up.
We need to get ahead of the spread. So at the moment, we're finding, by the time we find the cases, their households are already infected.
Among the new hotspots, Coles at Carrilla on Friday, July 2 and Tuesday, July 6. The KFC at Rockdale on Tuesday, July 6 and Wednesday the 7th. Greenacre Medical Practice on Monday, July 5 and Tuesday the 6th. It was being deep cleaned today. Anyone who visited these locations between those times is a close contact, must get tested and isolate for 14 days. Such is the concern about case numbers and this aggressive Delta strain that there was some new advice from the Chief Health Officer today for those waiting for their second AstraZeneca vaccine shot. Instead of waiting 12 weeks, Dr. Chant now suggests getting it as early as 6 weeks, sacrificing longer-term protection for better protection right now. Students were expected to go back to class week after next, not expected anymore.
Schools are safe, but what is not safe is having hundreds of thousands of people leaving home at around the same time, dropping kids off, picking kids up.
Also singled out today, tradies going from home to home and site to site, urged to get tested more often, particularly if they're working in hotspot areas. And from this Tuesday, new rules for all apartment residents. For the first time in this pandemic, face masks will be mandatory in all common areas in Greater Sydney, the Blue Mountains, Central Coast, Wollongong and Shell Harbour. And late this afternoon, the news many were expecting. Victoria will now shut its border to all of New South Wales and the ACT from midnight. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
Grace Fitzgibbon joins me in the studio. Grace, we know we're now at a critical point. Map out the numbers for us.
Well, Pete, we're now seeing a consistent daily rise in case numbers, and this breakdown shows the figure that's of most concern to New South Wales Health. The green shows cases that were isolating while infectious and aren't a threat, while the blue shows cases that had been in the community, potentially spreading the virus. Of the 77 cases recorded to 8 o'clock last night, only 32 were in isolation. And that's simply not good enough. There's no chance of opening the city up until until there is a consistent run of majority green bars. Tracking the trajectory of this outbreak shows just how infectious the Delta strain is. It's already eclipsing Melbourne's deadly second wave. Sydney is on day 25 and we've recorded 566 locally acquired cases. On the same day, in Melbourne's outbreak, there had only been 113. However, on the day Sydney was locked down, there were 82 cases linked to the Bondi wave. Melbourne had 860 active cases before it was told to stay home, and that could prove the difference between the two. Pete.
Grace, thank you. All right, let's go to Nine's Tiffany Genders at Marylands. Tiff, 52 of the 77 new cases today are in our southwest. What are the testing numbers like?
Well, Peter, testing is consistent. More than 48,000 people swabbed over the last 24 hours, but there is always room for more, and this Marylands drive-through clinic is open until 10 o'clock tonight. Southwestern Sydney is again home to majority of those new cases. Community leaders today ramping up their pleas after a spike in house-to-house transmission. In southwestern Sydney, family and community are at the heart of everything. But with 2/3 of new COVID cases within the region and the virus spreading from home to home, it's loved ones who are most at risk.
People catching up with their relatives. It is just a recipe for COVID spread.
Households were hunkered down in Fairfield today, the main strip deserted. The only hotspot was the drive-through testing clinic. This was Cabramatta on a quiet Sunday. Shoppers masked up and socially distanced while grabbing supplies.
People need to shop, people need to eat.
The streets are very quiet. There's not many people, not many cars.
And with household transmission linked to the first death of the outbreak, our leaders are begging for people to protect one another.
It doesn't mean that you love your family any less if you don't visit them or they don't visit you. On the contrary, this actually shows that you love your family more. You're protecting them and you're protecting everybody else.
You can be rest assured those breaking the rules are being dobbed in. In the past 24 hours, there were 1,200 reports of possible breaches, leading to 106 fines. 15 of them dealt out to a group playing poker in a small Marrickville unit. Aged between 56 and 89, police say the men are old enough to know better.
No masks, no social distancing, clearly in an environment that was a huge risk to them, their families and their community.
An Airbnb unit at Sydney Olympic Park was rented out for an 18th birthday. Neighbours got wind and the 10-person party was over.
We are not meeting our friends, our family, because of the number of cases growing, so definitely we are against it.
And in Maryland's West, red cards were handed to 5 friends caught competing in a garage PlayStation FIFA match. The Euro 2020 final kicks off at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Watching it anywhere but your own lounge room is out of the question.
In the same way that we all celebrated Ash Barty's amazing success, what we also need to do is make sure that tomorrow we celebrate the success of the soccer and watch the soccer in our homes with our own family units.
Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
And senior reporter Eddie Meyer joins me at the desk. Eddie, an extended lockdown is almost certain. Where does that leave struggling businesses?
Oh, Pete, certainly more worried than they have been. And the New South Wales government knows it needs to do something. The Premier and Treasurer are both saying today that they are working on a major rescue and support package due to be announced sometime this week. And we understand that they've had a series of rolling discussions throughout this afternoon that will continue into tonight with the Prime Minister and Treasurer. The results of that can't come soon enough, not just for business, Pete, but for all of those facing financial hardship. OK, Eddie, thank you. We're going to go to breaking news now out of the NRL. Danny Weidler is at the Blues camp in Kingscliff for us this evening. Danny, what information do you have for us?
Yeah, good evening, Pete. The ARL Commission has just finished a meeting and they are addressing the clubs across the game right now where they're telling them their fate. Now, I can tell you that 12 clubs will be relocated to Queensland by Wednesday. That means around 30 players and 12 officials from each club will be in Queensland. That's where the game is going to be played from now on. It's a significant shift because the NRL had to do something with the rising COVID numbers. The good news, though, for the players, whilst they'll be there for a month, Pete, their families will be allowed to be with them.
OK, Danny Weidler reporting from Kingscliff, thank you. Players, fans and commentators have all been expecting the announcement, so round 18 is certainly set to look very different.
Sunday afternoon footy.
The opening comments to this afternoon's NRL game felt almost inevitable.
So this could very well be the last game in Sydney in the NRL for a while.
It got immediately worse. A casual contact discovered amongst catering staff. The Warriors forced to wait on their team bus for 20 minutes.
They had to throw out all the food. They had to clean their area.
I think they're pretty used to dealing with different circumstances, so it didn't faze them too much.
But with COVID infections increasing, the prospect of permanently playing away from home, as the Warriors have done for 6 months, became a reality. The CEO flagging the move this morning.
We have 9 Sydney-based teams, and so it's very much on the cards that we may need to, for a short period of time, relocate them to somewhere where there's a much lower risk.
It's the cost of not having the competition that keeps them going, because then the money stops coming in.
The league, anxious to ensure any club moved, will have access to facilities such as gyms and meeting areas. But the framework for bringing families along, as the Warriors have done this year, remains unknown.
I don't know whether that would mean they can go with them, and that's a very big part of what the Warriors' deal was here.
Queensland Health this afternoon confirming they're in discussions with the league.
They understand what the requirements are. They are still requirements that maintain COVID safety for the Queensland community and for those participants.
The team that won our premiership last year, spent most of the year away from home up at the Sunshine Coast, so they've showed it can be done.
Mike Dalton, 9 News.
If you're still looking for a reason to get a COVID vaccine, this might be it. A nationwide advertising campaign has been launched, but the one we'll see on our screens in Sydney is especially confronting.
Struggling for oxygen. The COVID-19 outbreak in New South Wales has spawned a confronting new ad campaign designed just for Sydney.
Leaves people in no doubt of the importance of both isolating, getting tested and getting vaccinated.
The rest of Australia will get a Brady Bunch version.
Now's the time to arm yourself, your family, your friends, your workmates.
Which leaves Labor underwhelmed.
If this is the best they can do, I think they need to go back to the drawing board.
The G-rated ad is a sign that government confidence is growing, that more vaccines are on the way.
Now, it's a game changer to be getting 1 million Pfizer doses a week.
Australia is on track to get 2.8 million doses of Pfizer in July and 4.5 million in August, on the way to 40 million doses by year's end. The first of 25 million doses of Moderna will begin arriving later this year, as will the first shipments of 51 million Novavax jabs. Now pharmacies are joining the front line in rural and regional Australia.
By mid-August, there will be over 1,000 community pharmacies around Australia in every state and territory except for the ACT that will be able to provide COVID-19 vaccinations.
Chemists will be dispensing the AstraZeneca vaccine, and as the rollout gathers pace, the Pharmacy Guild is calling on National Cabinet to let it do more.
To remove the ban on the remaining 3,000 pharmacies in major metropolitan areas.
All this will do little to ease Sydney's current crisis, so the Morrison government needs this lockdown to be the last, and it now understands it is in a race.
Get the AstraZeneca, get Pfizer, get whatever your doctor is advising, whatever is available, as quickly as possible.
Chris Ullman, 9 News.
Well, some happy news for the nation now. From the moment she picked up a tennis racket, Ash Barty dreamed of winning Wimbledon. Last night, that goal became reality. Showing fierce determination on court and grace off it, Barty became the first Australian woman to triumph at the All England club since her idol, Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley, 41 years ago.
The dream comes true. Australia's Ash Barty is Wimbledon champion.
The ultimate reward for a lifetime of dedication, the girl from Ipswich, now Queen of the Court at the All England Club. Like Pat Cash in 1987, Barty headed straight for the stands, embracing boyfriend Gary and coach Craig, the team that's carried her to the top of world tennis.
It's daring to dream. It's putting yourself out there and understanding that not all dreams come true, but sometimes they just do. And I think putting in all the work and putting in all of the hours and the sacrifice make that moment worthwhile. And to be able to share it with the ones that I love the most is kind of the best part about it.
As number 1 seed, Barty entered the final a heavy favourite. The Duke and Duchess, as well as Hollywood royalty Tom Cruise, were courtside. The pressure would have unsettled lesser players. Ash was unfazed.
Oh, brilliant from Barty.
She won the first 14 points of the match, taking the first set quickly. But Karolina Pliskova is a world number 1 who was never surrendering easily.
Oh, 2 let cords. Can you believe it?
The Czech stole the second set, sending the match to a decider, which had all the intensity and desperation you'd expect.
Oh, amazing.
But in the key moments, Barty stood far taller than her 166 centimetres.
Oh, yes. Wow. She needed every inch of the racket.
Remaining composed, she served out the match to win 6-3, 6-7, 6-3.
It's been an incredible fortnight. I think at times it's felt like it's gone really quickly, and at other times it felt like time has stood still.
Ash Barty has just written herself into the history books, only the 3rd Australian woman to claim Wimbledon glory, behind Margaret Court and her mentor Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley.
I hope I made Yvonne proud.
No, you did. She certainly did. I mean, she made me proud from the first time I saw Ash.
Ash paid tribute to her fellow Indigenous icon, wearing a dress modelled on the one Goolagong-Cawley wore during her first successful Wimbledon campaign 50 years ago.
I remember not watching tennis at all until Federer came along because he had all the skills. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if there was a young girl that came along and who can play like that? Here comes Ash.
Yvonne certainly wasn't the only fan cheering on at home. Yeah! Like millions of others around Australia, Ash's elated parents were glued to the TV until the early hours.
I'm just proud of how she treats everybody, and she's still the same person regardless of the tennis, but she's just amazing.
She's such a lovely girl. She's a wonderful human being.
Barty showed courage just to make it to Wimbledon. An injury at the French Open was meant to keep her sidelined for 2 months.
We had scans and I chose not to look at the scans. I didn't want to know, I just wanted to go by how I felt physically, and it was, touch and go, and I was just trying to push the envelope.
From the early days when she was barely bigger than her racket to the most iconic stage in tennis, Ash Barty has fulfilled her childhood dream, and now she's the inspiration for a whole new generation of players.
Dare to dream. That's all. Just put it out into the universe, and you never quite know what can happen.
And Nine's Euro correspondent Carrie-Anne Greenbank is at Wimbledon. Carrie, what a performance. How is Ash celebrating?
Well, Pete, in contrast to all the Barty parties happening across Australia right now, Ash Barty said that she was planning a low-key night. She's only got a small team over here and they've been celebrating quietly. Next stop for the world number 1 is the Olympics, but no doubt Ash is already planning to defend her title here. If she does, she'd break another record, the first Australian since John Newcombe in 1971 to win back-to-back Wimbledons. But there's plenty of time for that. As for what's on today at Wimbledon, it's the final day of play. It's the men's finals. Djokovic against Berrettini. That match gets underway in just under 5 hours. Pete?
Carrie, thank you. And of course, right here on 9. Let's check in on today's weather. Good evening, Amber.
Good evening to you, Pete. After a few early showers, it cleared up by mid-morning, bringing a mostly sunny afternoon with light to moderate southeast to southwesterly winds. Cronulla had the heaviest rain today, picking up 9 millimetres, 7 falling in Winston Hills and 4 in Mona Vale. The city a little warmer than average, cooling down to just under 10 degrees this morning before reaching a top of 17.5. Our west dipping to 9 before warming up to 18 degrees in the afternoon sunshine. There is some rain across New South Wales over the next week. I'll be back with a full forecast a little later, Pete.
Amber, thank you. It's an accident almost too awful to comprehend. Next, the tragic death of a 5-week-old baby boy mauled by the family dog. Plus the new school censors to catch students vaping in the toilets. Spiralling fast and out of control. A fire-nado kicks off in California. Wait until you hear the state's record-breaking temperature. And browsing is now banned, so how do you get your groceries safely? The supermarket changes. Every shopper needs to know. The story coming up.